A potential new AEW signing plus a potential AEW star leaving, going back to WWE. We're talking about it in today's video. As always, I'm going to put the timestamps in the description down below. This morning, there was some very interesting news that surfaced from Dax Harwood and his podcast, FTR with Dax. And they announced today, him and Matt Kuhn announced that the podcast will be discontinued moving forward. The news was revealed on today's final episode, with the co-host, Matt Kuhn, pointing out that All Elite Wrestling and the promotion CEO, Tony Khan, had not pressured him or the reigning tag team champion from doing the podcast. Harwood and Kuhn agreed that they were causing more harm to professional wrestling and AEW than good. And wow, this is like a big bummer. Look, these guys had a great podcast. And if you were somebody who enjoyed watching this podcast, then you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that this podcast going away definitely sucks. Now, the good news is they confirmed that Tony Khan and AEW really had nothing to do with this. This was more of a personal decision. But I found it to be very odd. Dax Harwood admitted that he finds it difficult to handle some of the things being said about him, and he doesn't want his daughter to read those comments in years to come. And he actually explained that everything he said on the show was him speaking his truth, and he stood up for what he believed in on the show. And, it just sucks to see that this is the outcome, because it was not only an entertaining podcast, but it really felt like the things that were being talked about really didn't have any sort of control coming from like Tony Khan or outside people, right? It felt really authentic. Obviously FTR stayed with AEW for 4 years, or they're staying with AEW for 4 years. I'm hoping at the end of their contract, when they do decide to retire, Dax Harwood does get back into the podcast business. I just think he's a hell of a podcaster. Just some of the things that he's talked about throughout all of his episodes were really good. And, I think wrestling fans, man, I think like when he's talking about some of the things that are being said about them, at the end of the day, like, why are wrestling fans being so bothered by somebody's experiences, somebody who's in the business? Why are they so bothered by this? And, that sucks that people are just saying hurtful things on the internet to random people that they don't know. It's just a very strange thing. It sucks to see that this podcast is going away, but obviously it is done with. It's going away, and I hope after the 4 years they do bring it back. With that being said, I want to turn our attention to Alexa Bliss. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about Alexa Bliss. I've seen it on my Discord server several times where it's like, hey, what about Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt? What's going on with them? Obviously, there's been a lot of questions surrounding Alexa Bliss and her WWE future. And honestly, right now, there's really not much to be said about it. I know Ringside News came out with something, and they were saying that right now, there's just no plans for her. And nobody really knows why there is no plans for her. We know why Alexa Bliss originally took a step back from WWE television. She publicly commented on that. But right now, there's just been so much speculation about Vince McMahon being back in the WWE. Is this a matter of WWE not being happy, or her not being happy, or whatever the case may be? That doesn't appear to be the case. It looks like just a thing of where creative is not ready. Obviously we saw Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy somewhat got involved with Alexa Bliss. What was going on with that, right? Like, we never really got a payoff to that. Obviously, Bray Wyatt is going through something internally that's not being discussed publicly, which, for all intents and purposes, we're not going to sit here and speculate on their personal well-being or anything like that. But at the same time, too, you do have to wonder if Triple H will bounce back to those ideas with Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. And obviously, we have the WWE draft coming up, so that is something that's definitely going to make me wonder potentially what could WWE's plans be. But as far as people wondering where Alexa Bliss is, as of right now, it just sounds like there's nothing for her creatively. So if that's the case, maybe WWE is just waiting on Bray Wyatt. And if WWE is just waiting on Bray Wyatt, I actually have no problem with that whatsoever. I was very intrigued to see what WWE does with Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt. We saw Uncle Howdy and Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss kind of have a moment on TV. And, I just feel like with WWE doing that, I don't want to see it get dropped necessarily. I know some people do. I know some people don't like it. But for me, I just feel like WWE can have something really cool there if it is very well-rounded and very thoroughly planned out. So as far as Alexa Bliss goes, I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, we got to give things time and see what happens. But WWE has an entire women's division to push. There's a lot of people that haven't been used on TV. So when somebody does take a backseat to television for whatever reason, it's important that WWE continues to mix it up with talent as far as that goes. Guys, Buddy Murphy potentially going back to WWE. Well, Rhea Ripley said something very interesting in a new interview with Jerry Royf. She was asked about the possibility of Buddy Matthews joining her back in WWE. She says, oh, maybe, I don't know. So I'm very convincing. I'm a very convincing girl. I normally get what I want. And Ripley goes on to state that, so it might happen, but you never know. But right now, I'm happy with my Dom. I'm happy going out there with him and Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And I mean, you never know what the future holds. It might happen. Now, guys, I'm bringing this up for a very specific reason. This past week on Raw, we saw WWE go into faction wars with the Judgment Day, the Bloodline, and then you obviously got Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Matt Riddle. And then something very interestingly happened to kick off WWE Raw, and that was Damian Priest shaking the hands of Paul Heyman and Finn Balor, not necessarily liking that. And now it seems to me that WWE is not only telling the fall of the Roman Empire, but maybe even the fall of Judgment Day. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. When I look at the Judgment Day and I look at everything they've done since Triple H has taken over, honestly, I have been 100% all in. When the Judgment Day had Edge, you guys know, if you watch my content, I was a little bit like, I kind of like it. I just don't see the purpose. Now I feel like I've seen the purpose. I feel like they've executed, and Rhea Ripley has been absolutely incredible. You have to wonder what could be next with WWE and the Judgment Day. Now, with Rhea Ripley openly talking about Buddy Murphy coming back to WWE, I think this would be a massive W for WWE. There is no shot that I've never, ever believed that Buddy Murphy, Buddy Matthews, whatever you call him, I've never not believed that he could be a top star in a company. He is so incredibly talented, and he's got a lot of the things that WWE looks for. Buddy Murphy in WWE can be really successful. And I actually love the House of Black. If you guys know what I talk about when I talk about AEW, the House of Black is one of my favorite things. I just want to see more from the House of Black. I feel like there could be so much more done with the House of Black, so many more storylines and so many more matches that could be done, and AEW doesn't do that. Look, at some point, I feel like Buddy Murphy is going to be back in WWE. Now, I don't know if the Judgment Day will be around for that time period, but you have to wonder if WWE would do a faction with Buddy Murphy, Rhea Ripley, and the Judgment Day. And obviously with Damian Priest potentially one day becoming a Paul Heyman guy, that is very intriguing to me. What about Finn Balor breaking off and joining the OC, right? AJ, Finn, you got Gallows and Anderson there. Like, I feel like there's some potential there. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's a lot of potential with all of these factions in WWE. You bring in Buddy Murphy, that could be a big thing. Plus, you can have him immediately go into the mid-card, upper mid-card, and dominate. So very interesting stuff there. And guys, for our final story of the day, Kota Ibushi talking to Dark Parasu. I always forget how to pronounce it. Terrible. Parizu. Flosion. Kota Ibushi told them that him and Kenny Omega have been talking recently and hopes to talk with Tony Khan soon. Recently, Kenny and I have been talking about other things than games. For example, are your knees okay? Or is your shoulder okay? Also, I hope to be in contact with Tony soon. Now, there has obviously been a lot of talk lately because of AEW and All In, which Kota Ibushi also brings up. Kota Ibushi says All In is taking place in Wembley Stadium come August, right? Perhaps if I could face Chris Jericho or Hangman Page in a singles match or with the Golden Elite, maybe the Golden Lovers. Guys, this is exactly what AEW needs to do. They need to bring in the top names that are favored by those in Japan or, by the hardcore audience in America. Kota Ibushi, there's been talks of maybe even going to WWE. I think Kota Ibushi works out completely fine in WWE or AEW. I don't think there's an issue whatsoever. I think AEW probably is the better fit for Kota, to be honest. But to sit there and say that WWE bringing in Kota, I wouldn't want that, is ridiculous. I would want to see Kota Ibushi make some serious money in America if that is what he so chooses. So, very interesting stuff happening in wrestling today, guys. I think AEW signing Kota Ibushi, whether it's per appearance or, a short-term contract, I think it's possible. I think we see it happen. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.